Hey friends, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Yud Tes, Daf 119 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, talking an interesting daf today. My chair is a little squeaky today. I wonder if it's squeaky every day. I hope it doesn't come through in the recording. I haven't noticed it. Anyways, and today's exciting because we're starting the last parak of Masechta Yevamos. Gewaldig. Yeah, it's talking interesting daf. I think we should just jump in, but I mean, it's Yevamos-y kind of stuff. Yibum, Chalitza, the husband died, Wellwood, you know what I mean? Kind of standard stuff, man. Yevamos is all about just setting up the case. Although, maybe this is a little bit different. No, there's Ruvain and Shimon and Sarah and Rivka, so, what do you want me to tell you? Friends, let's get started all the way at the top of Kuf Yud Tes Amud Aleph. Last parak of Masechta Yevamos. Here we go. How many daf are left? Kuf Yud Tes, Kuf Chaf Aleph, Kuf Chaf Beis. This is the fourth to last daf of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, are you going to miss Masechta Yevamos? Are you going to miss Masechta Yevamos? I'll leave you with that question. Now let's begin. Ha'isha shalach bayla v'tzaras lemdinas hayom. Ooh wah. Ooh wah. Ooh wah. Okay. No, let's set it up. Sarah is married to Reuven. Sarah has a tzara. Sarah has a co-wife. Rivka. Reuven and Rivka go traveling someplace. Okay. So Ha'isha, Sarah, shalach bayla v'tzarasa, that Reuven and Rivka went. They went traveling someplace. I'm traveling someplace soon. I'm not sure if I'm going to tell my mom yet. The thing is that she listens to Babylon Talmud, so whatever I say here, she knows, and then she writes to me about it in WhatsApp. Also, it's good that my mom listens to Babylon Talmud, because whenever I share things about like different funny things from like my family, so she knows who to disperse it to. So she just sent me a message today that she sent my Uncle Josh that he has to listen to the thing about the ice cream, and then with the menorah from Holtz the other week, she sent it out to those people that they should know that I was talking about how they don't speak Yiddish. Not like I speak Yiddish either, but so then they were all joking about it, and everybody gets to have their little jokes. Okay, everyone should have their little jokes. That's good. Friends, we're not joking here. We're being serious. So you have Sarah and her husband Ruvain and her co-wife Rivka. They went traveling someplace. Oh, that would be funny. Maybe I actually won't tell my mom that I'm traveling somewhere. She'll just like send me a message in WhatsApp like, hey, where are you going? Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just wait for my mom to send me in WhatsApp like, oh, where are you traveling to? Okay, that's what I'm going to do, friends. All right? Don't tell my mom. And then they come back and they say that Reuven died. Okay. Lo tinase v'lo tisyabim. Now the thing is, there's also Shimon. Okay. Reuven's got a brother Shimon. Now here's the thing. She can't do Yibum with Shimon, and she also can't get remarried. Why? She cannot get remarried, well, because Reuven doesn't have any kids, and therefore she would have to do Yibum. Okay, but here's the thing. What if, while Reuven and Rivka were away, Rivka got pregnant? Sarah doesn't know. She wasn't on the trip. Reuven and Rivka went away. Maybe Rivka got pregnant. If Rivka's pregnant, that means she's going to have a baby. If she has a baby, so then Reuven has progeny. If Reuven has progeny, then there's no Yibum. If there's no Yibum, she can't marry Shimon, and if she does, it's an erva. So she's a shtickle stuck. On the one hand, when Sarah and when Rivka and Reuven left on their trip, there were no kids for Reuven, which means that based on that, she would have to do Yibum with Shimon. But at the same time, maybe on their trip, Rivka got pregnant. If Rivka's pregnant, then there is no Yibum with Shimon. So she can't get remarried because maybe she has to Yibum, but she can't do Yibum because maybe Rivka's pregnant. So if Rivka and Ruvain went traveling someplace, Uvava Amrula, and then, witnesses come and they say, Meis Bailech, that Ruvain's gestorben, Lo Tinasiv Lo Tisyabim. She can't get remarried because, Mistama, she has to do Yibum. But she also, Lo Tisyabim, she can't do Yibum either, because what if Rivka's pregnant? She shouldn't be doing Yibum. Until she knows, what the status is with Rivka, so that, she knows if she can get, what she should do, remarry, Yibum. Okay, what if Sarah has a mother-in-law in some place, right? Oh, 1 second. What? Wait, so does this even have to be talking about where they went on a trip? 1 second. Okay. Wait, who's this talk? Excuse me, 1 second. I need to look up something. Okay, fine. So basically, so the case over here is that Sarah has a mother-in-law. Now, the mother-in-law can have children. So now Sarah is married to Reuven. Reuven does not have a brother Shimon. There's no brother. Reuven also doesn't have any kids. So if Reuven dies, so then Sarah can get remarried because there's no Shimon to do Yibum with. But what if Reuven's mother, Sarah's mother-in-law, lives in some far-off place, and it's not like there's a FaceTime or anything where you can talk all the time and know if she's having a baby. How do you know? Maybe the mother-in-law, maybe Reuven's mother, had a baby boy. In which case, Reuven now has a brother, Shimon. In which case, Sarah does need to do Yibum. So, what if Sarah has a mother-in-law who's capable, who's able to have children? Right? She doesn't have to, if Reuven dies, Sarah doesn't have to be concerned, but what if Reuven's mother had a baby and now there's Yibum? No, she doesn't have to be concerned. But if the mother-in-law came to visit, and when she left to go to wherever she lives, it was, she was pregnant, well, in that case, we have to be concerned that she gave birth to a yingel, and that there is a shimon. Rabbi Yoshua says no. Even if when the mother-in-law went to wherever she was going, she was already pregnant, still we do not have to be concerned that there's a brother, because, it happens that women miscarry. And then even when women, do give birth to healthy children, 50% are boys, 50% are girls. So Kilu, between the number of women who miscarry and the women who give birth, 50% are boys, 50% are girls, what ends up happening is, mathematically speaking, less than 50% of pregnancies result in boys, and therefore, says Rabbi Yeshua, we don't actually have to be concerned that Reuven has a brother, Shimon, and that Sarah would have to do Yibum. So says Rabbi Yeshua that that Sarah would be able to get remarried. Now, my hitzar also, when the Mishnah says, right, Lo tinasiv lo tisayim achite the shemim uberes hitzar also, right? We said in the ratio of the Mishnah that if Reuven and Rivka go traveling someplace, and then and Sarah finds out that Reuven's gestorben, so then Sarah cannot get remarried until she finds out, right, Shemim uberes hitzar also. Maybe her tzara, maybe Rivka is taka pregnant. So it says my hitzara. So what does it mean she the tzara? Just say tzara. So what's hitzara? So the hot tzara hu the chashinon haval tzara achris lo chashinon. That we only have to be concerned that maybe Rivka is pregnant. We don't have to be concerned that maybe Reuven married another woman also when he was traveling, and there's some other co-wife now, and maybe she's pregnant. No, just the co-wife that Reuven left with, Rivka. Lo tinasiv lo tisab v'chulei. So we say that Sarah cannot get married because, as far as we know, she has to do Yibum, but she also can't do Yibum because what if Rivka is pregnant? So, Bishlama Yabume lo. So I understand why Sarah would not do Yibum with Shimon, because the Dilma mi'abra, because what if Rivka is pregnant? V'kapaga be'eshes och, de'iraisa. If Rivka is pregnant, so then that means that Reuven's going to have a child, and if he has a child, then there's no Yibum, and if there's no Yibum, and Sarah and Shimon do what they think is Yibum, she is sleeping with essentially Eshes Ach. and that's an Issa D'Oraisa. So I understand why she shouldn't do Yibum. Lo tinase amai, but why can she not get married? Let's say that the majority of women, i.e. we're talking about Rivka in this case, let's say that the majority of women get pregnant and give birth to babies, and therefore we should assume that Rivka got pregnant and Rivka had a baby, or at least is pregnant with a baby. So therefore, right, and if she's pregnant, then she's going to have a baby. At least that's the majority of the cases. So therefore, the Gemara says, why don't we assume that Rivka got pregnant and is either pregnant or had a baby or is going to have a baby, in which case she should be able to get remarried. So I understand why we wouldn't do Yibum, because in the event that Rivka is pregnant, so then, doing Yibum with Shimon would be Erva. But why not assume that Rivka got pregnant and is having a baby, or had a baby, and she should be able to marry whoever, right? Sarah should be able to marry whoever she wants. Lema Reb Meir hi d'chayish lemiyuta. So the Gemara says, well, let's say that our Mishnah is like Reb Meir, who's concerned for the underdog. He's concerned for the minority situation. Right? Even though, yes, the majority of the times Rivka will get pregnant and have a baby, but there are times when she won't. And out of concern for the times when she won't, so therefore we have to be concerned that maybe Rivka is not having a baby, in which case she Sarah cannot get remarried, because then there's Yibum with Shimon, and we just don't know if, we don't know what the status of Rivka is, and therefore we have to be concerned about the minority situation, which is that Rivka will not be having a baby. Okay. Afilutema Rabbanon, to which the Gemara says, well, you don't have to limit it to Reb Meir. You can even say it's the opinion of the rabbis who do hold of going after the majority, going after the rov, but nonetheless over here they would not say that. Ki azle Rabbanon basa ruba deisa kamun. That when the rabbis say that we go based on the majority, that is an objective majority, a majority that is in front of us. Kigon tesha chanuyos. For example, if there are 10 stores, 9 of them sell kosher meat, one of them sells non-kosher meat, and you find a piece of meat outside, so kol de parish meruba parish, we assume that it came from the majority. We could see, right? 9 stores have a hechsher, 1 doesn't. It's a clear majority that's in front of our eyes. V'sanedre, as well as a sanedrin ketana, right? For example, if a fellow commits murder, so as we'll learn in Masechta Sanhedrin, that there's a bezdin of 23 judges, and we go based on the majority. If 12 say innocent and 11 say guilty, so we go based on the majority, right? 12 against 11, that's a majority that's right in front of us. Aval ruba deleisa kamon, but by a subjective majority, or a majority that isn't objectively in front of us. For example, to say that most women give birth to babies. So, okay, maybe we could say it sounds right, but it's not like, the 9 stores that have the kosher certificate on the window, right? That's objectively in front of us. This is more conjecture. Lo azle rabbanon basaru. One second. Avaruba de leisakaman lo azle rabbanon basaruba. Did I read that right? One second. I can go on Teshchon Yosef Sanedri. Avaruba de leisakaman lo azle rabbanon basaruba. I think I read that right. Why not? Right, so if it's a ruba de leisa kaman, if it's a ruba that's not in front of us, so then the rabbis will not go based on the majority in that case. But 1 second, friends, what about a ka'in and a ketana? A young fellow and a young fella. The ruba de leisa kaman, it's a majority that isn't in front of us. And yet the rabbis go based on the majority. What are we talking about? The Tanyas, we're learning the Brisa. Ka'in uktana. A young fellow and a young fella. Lo chotzim v'lo miyabim, they don't do chalitza, they don't do yibum. Tiv Reb Meir, that's the opinion of Reb Meir. Amlo le Reb Meir, they said to Reb Meir, Yofe omarta shein chotzin. I understand, Reb Meir, why you're saying that the young fellow and the young fella don't do chalitza. Ish ksiv b'parsha makshin isha leish, because it says in the parsha of chalitza, it says ish. What is it supposed to say? Vim liyachbol to ish lo kachas asivimto. It says a grown-up fellow, an adult fellow, and therefore it has to be an adult, not a minor. And umakshinan isha l'isha, we compare women to men. And therefore, just like by boys they have to be adults, by girls oichet they have to be adults, to the exclusion of a young fellow and a young fellow. Elamatam ein miyabmin. But how come, right, the rabbis say to Reb Meir, I don't understand, how come a young fellow and a young fella can't do yibum? Amiloim. So Reb Meir says, well, ka'in shema yimotze saris. What if the young fellow turns out to be a castrato? Kitana shema timotze ilonis. What if a young fella turns out to be an ilonis, a castratala? V'nimtza pogim be'erva. In which case, they ended up being an erva, right? So if the young fellow is a castrato, turns out later to be a castrato, or if the young fella turns out later to be a castratala, so then what happened? So then it was erva, because it wasn't a union that would result in a child for the deceased. So, right, to be a name for the deceased. So therefore, Reb Meir says we have to be concerned about the castrato and the castratala. Rabbanan tzavi zu basaruba diktanim v'ov katanim lav sriseninu. So the rabbis say to Reb Meir, meh. They say, Reb Meir, meh. We don't need to be concerned about a young fellow being a castrato, because zil basaruba, let's go based on the majority. V'rov katanim lav sriseninu. Most young fellows are not going to be castratos. Zil basarov katanis. Go based on young fellas. Virov katanis lav ilonios ninu. And most young fellas are not going to end up being castratolas. And therefore, no. So we see that even in this case of the young fellows and the young fellas, the rabbis are willing to go based on the majority, even though it's not an objective majority that's in front of us. For example, the 9 stores that have their Tudat Kashrut on the window, and the one that doesn't. Here it's more kilu, look, it seems more conjecture to assume that most young fellows will not be castratos. I mean, sounds right. And nonetheless, the rabbis are willing to go based on that rove, even though it's not an objective rove that's in front of us. Therefore, it makes sense to say that the Mishnah is Taka Reb Meir, and that is why Sarah cannot get remarried, because we have to be concerned for the minority situation, which is that maybe Rivka is not pregnant and will not be having a baby, and therefore Sarah cannot get remarried, because in that case she has to do Yibum. Fine. P'mayu kimta ki Reb Meir. So then the Gemara says, wait a second. We're saying that this Mishnah is Reb Meir Ema Seifa. What about the second part of the Mishnah? What does it say, Darton? Hoysa lo chamos. If Sarah, right, so Sarah is married to Ruvain is gestorben, there's a mother-in-law. Eina chosheshes. We don't need to be concerned that maybe the mother-in-law gave birth to a yingle, and that Sarah now has to do Yibum with Shimon, who was just born. But why don't we have to be concerned? Why don't we go based after most women? And most women give birth and have children, and therefore, why can't we assume that the mother-in-law, Taka, is going to get pregnant, right, or got pregnant and had a baby? And Reuven now is a brother Shimon. Miut mapilos. Now, a minority of women will miscarry. And those women who do have babies, 50% of them are going to be boys, 50% of them are going to be girls. Now, if we if we take all the pregnancies that happen, and we say, look, some of them are going to be miscarriages, some of them are going to be girls, some of them are going to be boys, and we put the miscarriages and the girls together, so v'havale zchar miuta, which makes the boys a minority, right? A minority of pregnancies will result in boys. and therefore, because there is a right, and therefore the Mishnah is saying that because there is a minority, right, meaning that we don't need to be concerned that the mother-in-law gave birth to a brother for Ruvain, because the chances of her pregnancy resulting in a boy is less than 50%. The Gemara says, V'leichush, right? And therefore, Reb Meir should be concerned, right? Meaning, if we're saying that the Mishnah is Reb Meir, who is concerned about the minority situations, right? And that's why in the Reisha, he's concerned that maybe Rivka is not going to have a baby, and therefore, she would have to do Yibum with Shimon, but we just can't say for sure, and therefore she's basically stuck, and Sarah can't get married, nor can she do Yibum. So we're saying that the Reisha is Reb Meir was Choshesh L'Miuta, so in the Seifa as well, by the mother-in-law, we're saying that we don't have to be concerned that she gave birth to Ruvain's brother. But why not? Why not? Why not? Shouldn't we be concerned that, the mother-in-law got pregnant and even if in a minority of the situations that pregnancy will result in a boy to a brother of Ruvain, nonetheless, we have to, if it's Reb Meir, we should take into consideration the minority of situations, and therefore we should be concerned that maybe Reuven has a brother Shimon. Why are we saying that there's no concern? And for the Gemara, Dilma came the ichzika l'shuk lo chayish, to which the Gemara says, well, in the Seifa, the chazaka is that there's no brother, right? Sarah is married to Reuven. Reuven doesn't have a brother, Shimon. The mother-in-law went traveling someplace. Reuven dies. As far as we know, we don't know that Reuven has a brother, Shimon. When the mother-in-law left, she wasn't pregnant or anything like that. So therefore, the chazaka is that if Reuven were to die, Sarah would be able to get remarried. And therefore, that is why in the Sefer we're not concerned that Reuven has a brother, Shimon. Because the chazaka is that there is no Shimon and that Sarah can get remarried. But if that's the case, Reisha dichazik liyibum tisyabim. But then we should say that in the Reisha, when Rivka and Ruvain went on some trip, now when Rivka and Ruvain left, Ruvain didn't have any children. And Ruvain has a brother Shimon. So the chazaka when Ruvain and Rivka went on their trip was that if something were to happen to Ruvain and he dies, so Sarah would have to do Yibum. So then, if we're saying that the chazaka, that we go based on the chazaka, well, the chazaka was that when Ruvain and Rivka left, if anything were to happen to Ruvain, Sarah would have to do Yibum with Shimon. So why don't we say that when we find out that Ruvain's gestorben, that Sarah should have to do Yibum with Shimon? How can we say that she can't do Yibum with Shimon? So, Omer of Nachman of Rabbi Baravua Reisha de Isser Kares Chosheshu Sefer de Isser Lav Lo Chosheshu. So, Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabbi Baravua that, well, the chazaka in the Reisha is that she should have to do Yibum with Shimon. But it's risky. Playing with fire, shtickle. Because if it turns out that Rivka is pregnant, well then she just did Yibum with Shimon, who she shouldn't have, and that's a chiyuv karis. I mean, it's shogeg, so I guess maybe korban chatas, whatever it is, but meaning, right, you're messing with a situation where there's a chiyuv karis. Whereas in the Seifa, what's the chazaka? We're saying that the chazaka is that Reuven does not have a brother, and therefore she can go and get married. And if it turns out that the mother-in-law did give birth to a brother of Reuven's, so she was over on a lav, right? She was supposed to do yibum, but she got married, right? And it says losia eshes hameis hachutza liishzar. It's a lav. So she violated a law. So therefore, when the Reisha, when the stakes of the Chazaka are that she'll be violating an Isser Kares, an Isser that has a Chiyuv Kares associated with it, that we don't want to mess with. But in the Seifa, where if she gets remarried, it'll be a lav, so then we're willing to go based on the Chazaka and say that there's no brother and that there's no Yibum. But Omar Rav, says Rav, I don't know, I don't like the sound of that, says Rav. Michdei, Adoraisa, Adoraisa, they're both Doraisas. I understand, Eishes Och, has a chiyuv kares, and Yevamos l'shuk is just a lav, but they're both also midoraisa. Mali isur kares, mali isur lav. I mean, we can't play favorites over here. Sure, this one's a more stringent punishment, but at the end of the day, they're both also midoraisa. The fact that one's an isur kares and the other's an isur lav should not be a reason to take one less seriously than the other. Hello, my Rave. Rather says Rave, look. Reisha chazaka liyibum viruba lishuk vichazaka lo adif kiruba. That if we look at the Reisha, so what's the chazaka? The chazaka is that when Reuven and Rivka went on their trip, there was no babies, and there's a brother Shimon, so the chazaka is that if Reuven dies, Sarah should have to do Yibum with Shimon. That's the chazaka. So that would mean that Sarah and Shimon should do Yibum. The rov is that chances are that in most cases, Rivka got pregnant and had a baby, or is going to have a baby. Which would mean that if Reuven has a baby, then Sarah can get married to some other person, get married to whoever she wants. So we have a chazaka saying that she should do Yibum. We have a rov saying that she can marry whoever she wants. Let's read that again. Reisha chazaka liyibum v'ruba l'shuk. The chazaka is that Sarah should do Yibum with Shimon, but the rov is that she should be able to marry whoever she wants. V'chazaka lo adif kiruba. Now a chazaka is not as strong as a rov. Therefore, if it's only the chazaka versus the rov, we would say that it's stronger, the rov is stronger, i.e. that Rivka has a baby, or is going to have a baby, is stronger, and she should be able to marry whoever she wants. However, the aisi miyuta de mapilos, but then there's the miyut. There's the fact that in some situations, Rivka won't have a baby. Oh. So now if you have the chazaka to say that Sarah should do Yibum with Shimon because there was no baby when Rivka and Reuven left. And there's also the miyut that even if Rivka got pregnant, she might have a miscarriage, in which case there will be no baby. So you have the chazaka and the miyut on the one hand, and then you have the rov that most of the times Rivka would get pregnant and have a baby. So you have the rov, which is stronger than a chazaka, but it's a rov against a chazaka plus a miyut. Right? So I see muted the mapilo smoch l'chazaka and pair that up with the chazaka v'avli palgu ufalga lo tinasiv lo tisyabim, and therefore it's basically 50-50. Right? That there's a rov. On the one hand we're saying that based on the rov she should be able to get remarried. On the other hand, based on the chazaka and the miyut, she should have to do yibum, and they basically, it's half and half, 50-50. They cancel each other out. She can't get remarried. She can't do Yibum either. Now, Seifa, Chazaka l'shuk, Viruba l'shuk, Favle zchar miuta d'miuta, miuta d'miuta lo chayish meir. Now, the Seifa, what are all the examples that we have in the Seifa? So in the Seifa, Reuven does not have a brother Shimon. So the chazaka is that if Reuven were to die, Sarah would have nobody to do Yibum with. There's no Shimon. So the chazaka is that there's no Yibum. Now, if we now think about the mother-in-law who might have a baby, but she might have a miscarriage. And if she does have a baby, 50% chance it's a girl. So between the fact that some women miscarry and the fact that the women who do give birth to a baby, 50% of them are girls, basically, in less than 50% of pregnancies, the result is a boy, and therefore, the chances that Reuven now as a brother is also a mi'ut, right? The rov would be that it is not that the pregnancy, even if the mother-in-law gets pregnant, it will not result in a boy. So therefore, we have a chazaka saying that, when as far as we know, there's no Shimon. So the chazaka is that there's no brother and that Sarah does not need to do Yibum. We also have a rov, which is that even if the mother-in-law does get pregnant, the result will be either a miscarriage or a girl. The miut, the minority, less than 50%, is that it's a boy. So you have a miut versus a rov and a chazaka, which makes the zcharim a miuta de miuta, right? It's not just a regular miut, it's like a double miut, and therefore Reb Meir would not say we go based on that, and that is why in the Seifa he says that she can get remarried because the chances are too slim that she would actually have to do yibum. So we could say that the mission is entirely Reb Meir, and in the first part she can't get married based on the fact that we're choshesh lemiut, and that comes together with the chazaka. But in the Seifa, she can get remarried because we don't need to be concerned that maybe there's a brother to do yibum with. Lo tinase velo tisyabim. Okay, fine. So we say that in the Reisha she's unable to get married because maybe Rivka is pregnant, and she also can't do yibum because she's unable to get married because maybe she needs to do yibum with Shimon. She's also unable to do yibum though because maybe Rivka is pregnant. So now, fact the Gemara, uleolam amr zeiri leatzma shlosha chodashim. Now Zeiri says, look. There's solutions over here. Says Zeiri. She, Sarah, her husband left. So it's possible that Sarah, could have gotten pregnant before Reuven left on his trip. So for her, she should wait 3 months. After 3 months, she'll know if she's pregnant or not. So she should wait 3 months for herself to make sure that she's not pregnant, or to know if she's pregnant or not. Now, for Rivka, wait 9 months. Now, after 9 months, something would have happened, right? Either she would have had a baby, or not have a baby. If she has a baby, so then Sarah does not need to do yibum. If she doesn't have a baby, then Sarah does need to do yibum. So now, just wait essentially 9 months, v'choletzes, and then do chalitza with Shimon, right? Because just in case Rivka did not have a baby, so just do chalitza. Mima nafshach, right? And then just do chalitza, and then she can get remarried, right? Meaning, just wait 9 months. By then, Rivka either had a baby or didn't have a baby. Do chalitza just in case Rivka didn't have a baby and she has to do yibum with Shimon, so just do chalitza. If Rivka did have a baby, so there was no need for chalitza, but Peseder, you did it anyways. Now, once we have that behind us, Sarah can now go and get remarried. Reb Chanina says, Reb Chanina la'atzma shlosha lechaverta la'olam. Now, it says Reb Chanina, look, while she could wait 3 months to know if she's pregnant, and I guess if she's pregnant, so then Mimele, there's no yibum. But lechaverta la'olam. But for the co-wife, she really can't, there's really nothing that she could do about it, right? Meaning, I guess if Sarah turns out to not be pregnant, so then, if she doesn't know what the status is with Rivka, if she had a baby or not, well then she'll be, right, lo tisyabim lo tinosiv lo tisyabim. Sarah will be unable to get remarried nor do yibum. But the Gemara says, but why not just do like Zeiri says, just do chalitza after 9 months, and then, if there was a baby, so then you did, so then there was no need, but you did it anyways, and if there was no baby, so then you did chalitza. Abai bar Oven, Reb Chanina bar Oven, Amir Tavayu, Gzer Shem Yevalod ben Kayomo, V'nim Ta'ato Matzricha Karuz Lechuna. So Abai bar Oven, Reb Chanina Oven say, well, in the event that Rivka did in fact give birth to a baby, well, in that case, then Sarah had no need to do chalitza with Shimon, which means that the chalitza that she did is irrelevant, which means that Sarah can now marry a Kohen if she wants. But she won't be able to marry a Kohen because there were people who saw the chalitza, the Yentis, of course the Yentis know about every single chalitza that happens. So the Yentis know about the chalitza, and therefore, while technically speaking the chalitza was irrelevant, but the Yentis don't know that, and in order to allow Sarah to marry a Kohen, we would have to make like a whole announcement, and it's like a whole thing. So therefore, to avoid the situation where if Rivka does have a baby, and then we'll have to do a whole thing to like make sure that the Yentis know that Sarah is allowed to marry a Kohen. So to avoid that, we say that Sarah should just never ever get married. But 1 second, who cares? So we'll have to make an announcement. What's the big deal? Dilma Ika Dehave b'chalitza v'lave b'achraza. Well, what if there were people who were at the chalitza? So the yentis, right? They know that Sarah did chalitza with Shimon, but they didn't hear the announcement. Okay, chalitza is much more interesting, right? It's much more juicy to know that Sarah did chalitza than to know that she didn't need to do chalitza. And then they're going to say, the yentis are going to not know about the announcement, and they're going to think that Sarah is marrying a kohen, even though she's a chalutza, which of course is not the case, but they just didn't hear the announcement. And therefore, to avoid that, we say that Sarah says Reb Chanina that Sarah would be unable to get remarried until she knows what happened with Rivka. Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Nitan li bein b'mdina sayom, ve'amr meiz b'ni v'achar kach ba'ali ne'emenes. Right? We learned in a Mishnah earlier, on Daf Kuf Yud Ches, that if Ruvain and Sarah go on some trip, and when they left, there was no offspring, Ruvain didn't have any offspring, which means that the chazaka was that she would have to do yibum. Sarah comes back and says, look, while I was away, I had a baby, but the baby died and then Ruvain died, which means that at the time Ruvain died, he didn't have any children, so I still need to do yibum. So she's believed because nothing changed. When she left, she had a chazaka to do yibum. Now she has to do yibum. Nothing changed. But if she says that I gave birth to a baby, but then my husband died, and when he died, my son was still alive, and then my son died, and therefore it's making a change, right? When she left, there was a chazaka that she would have to do chalitza, but now she's making an argument that her husband died and then the son, which means that she does not have to do chalitza. So ein an menace. She's not believed, but we have to be concerned that maybe maybe really the husband did die. So we say, look, just do chalitza, don't do, right? Maybe the child died after the husband, so they say, look, just do chalitza and don't do yibum. But 1 second. But what if, if we're concerned about the yentis, so what if later on witnesses come and say that what Sarah says is correct, that Ruvain died, and then the yingel died, and then the baby died, which means that she really did not have to do chalitza, and then we're going to get into problems with, marrying kohanim, which means that then we're going to require, in order for Sarah to be able to marry a kohen, we're going to have to make an announcement that the chalitza was really irrelevant, and then we run into issues with the yentis. Papa begrusha. Papa says, well, the truth is that Sarah was already divorced before marrying Reuven, which means that she was already not allowed to marry a kohen miman afshach. So therefore, it's really not a big deal in this case. Rav Chia Brei, the Rav Huna Amar, be'amar anivu nechbeinu b'mayre. Rav Chia Brei, the Rav Huna says it's a situation where Sarah says, look, I gave birth to this baby, but we were in a cave the whole time. There's nobody else around, so nobody's going to come and testify that it was like I said. So therefore, there's no problem doing chalitza in that case, because nobody's ever going to. There's no way for anybody to find out that really she didn't need to do chalitza. So therefore, we're just going to assume that she's a chalutza. Fine. Says the next Mishnah, Shtei Yevamos, you have 2 Yevamos. Okay. Zo omeres meis baili, zo omeres meis baili, zo asur m'pnei baili shel zo, v'zo asur m'pnei baili shel zo. Friends, what's this case? Gotta set up the case. Mamish told the last daf of Masechta Yevamos was setting up cases. Ruvain and Shimon are brothers. Ruvain is married to Sarah. Shimon is married to Rivka. Sarah and Rivka are not sisters. Now, Sarah says, my husband Ruvain dies. Rivka says, my husband Shimon died. Okay, fine. So now, of course, we know that Sarah is believed. Right? Sarah is believed that Ruvain's dead. Rivka's believed that Shimon's dead. Here's the thing. We learned 2 days ago that potential, right, the Yevamos, right, the wife of your Yavam, i.e., Sarah is the wife of Shimon, who is, Rivka is the wife of Shimon, who is Sarah's Yavam, right? Sarah needs to do Yevim with Shimon. So we can't, right, Sarah can't testify for well, Rivka can't testify for Sarah, and vice versa. Sarah can't testify for Rivka either. So therefore, while they're believed that, while they are believed that their husbands are dead, but they're not believed about each other, right? So meaning, so what do we have? So we believe Sarah that Reuven's dead. So what? So then she has to do Yibum with Shimon. Now, Rivka says that Shimon is dead. So we believe Rivka that Shimon is dead with regard to her, but we don't believe her testimony with regard to Sarah. So we can't say, so meaning, Sarah says Reuven is dead. So what does she have to do? She has to marry Shimon. Now, what's the status of Shimon? Well, as far as Sarah is concerned, Shimon's alive. Rivka says he's dead, but Rivka's testimony doesn't work for Sarah because they're Yevamos. So therefore, Sarah says that Reuven is dead. She needs to do Yibum with Shimon. As far as we're concerned vis-a-vis Sarah, Shimon's alive. We don't know where he is, but she has to do Yibum. We have to assume that Shimon's alive, and she can't marry anybody else until she does Yibum or Chalitza with Shimon. We don't know where Shimon is. Rivka says Shimon's dead. We believe her with regard to the fact that now Rivka needs to do Yibum. The things we don't know where Reuven is, and Sarah says that Reuven's dead, but we can't trust Sarah with regard to Rivka. So basically they're stuck, right? So again, Shtei Yevamos Zomer's Meis Baili. So you have Sarah and Rivka. Sarah says that Reuven's dead. Zomer's Meis Baili, and Rivka says Shimon is dead. Sarah can't marry anybody else because she has to do even with Shimon. We don't know where Shimon is. And Rivka can't marry anybody else because she has to do even with Reuven, and we don't know where Reuven is. Lazo Eidim v'Lazo Ein Eidim. Now, what if Sarah has witnesses that her husband Reuven is dead? Rivka does not have witnesses that Shimon is dead. As sheyesh la Eidim asur v'es she'ein la Eidim muteres. So Sarah has witnesses that Reuven is dead, but Rivka does not have witnesses that Shimon is dead. So we don't know that Shimon is dead. Therefore, Sarah is basically stuck. But because Sarah brought witnesses that Reuven is dead, so Rivka, who's saying that Shimon is dead and now needs to do Yibum, but Rivka can assume that Reuven is dead because Sarah brought two witnesses who said that he's dead. Lazo bonim v'lazo ein bonim. If Sarah has children, or no, really, if Reuven has children, but Shimon does not have any children, as sheyesh la bonim muteres. So, Sarah who's married to Reuven and they have children, so then she can marry, right? There's no yibum, she can marry whoever she wants. As she'ein la bonim asura, but Rivka, who doesn't have any children with Shimon, so she needs to do yibum with Reuven, but we don't know where Reuven is, so she's stuck. Nisiyabmu vamesu hayivamin. Now, what if there was Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda? Right, so Sarah is married to Reuven, Rivka is married to Shimon. Sarah says Reuven's dead, Rivka says Shimon's dead. Sarah does Yibum with Levi, Rivka does Yibum with Yehuda. Okay, so again, so Nisyabmu, so if they did Yibum, Sarah married Levi, Rivka married Yehuda. Nisyabmu vamesu ayuvamin, and then Levi and Yehuda die. Asurus li'inase. So again, we go back to square one. Levi and Yehuda are dead. Sarah can't get married because she needs to do Yibum with Shimon. Rivka can't get remarried because she needs to do Yibum with Reuven. We don't know where Reuven is. We don't know where Shimon is. So therefore they're basically stuck. Rabbi Elazar says, look, once we're, assuming that Reuven is dead to allow Sarah to marry her brother-in-law Levi, and once we're believing Rivka that Shimon is dead to allow her to marry her brother-in-law Yehuda, so then once we're believing them that their husbands are dead to allow them to marry Ashes, to marry their husband's brother, so then we can allow them, we can assume that their husbands are dead, and we know that Levi and Yehuda are dead, and they can marry other people. Tana says the Gemara, Lazo edim uvanim v'lazo lo edim v'lo banim shtein mutaros. If Sarah has witnesses that Reuven is dead, now she also has children with Reuven. Now Rivka does not have witnesses that Shimon is dead. She also doesn't have any children with Shimon, so both of them are permitted, right? Sarah is permitted because she has children with Reuven, so Reuven has children, she doesn't need to do Yibum. Rivka is permitted because Sarah brought two witnesses that Reuven is dead, and therefore we trust Rivka that Shimon is dead, and we also can assume based on the witnesses that Reuven is dead, and therefore Rivka does not need to do Yibum either. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Yutes of Masechta Yevamos. It was kind of an interesting daf, I think. Right? We talked about the concept, the machlokes between Reb Meir and the Chacham of do you have to be choshesh l'miut. The Chacham say that you can just go based on the rove, whether this is a rove that's objective in front of us, like a bunch of stores. Some are kosher, right? Most are kosher, some are not. Or 9 and 1, whatever it is. Whether it's in that kind of a rove, or whether it's a conjecture, such as most Kitanim and Kitanos are not Ilonuses or Sarises. Whereas Reb Meir says we have to be concerned about miuts, minority situations, but highly, right, minorities of minorities we do not need to be concerned about. For example, if the chazaka is that she doesn't have to do Yibum, and then the rove is that she probably, the mother-in-law probably did not give birth to a boy, we don't have to be concerned about the sort of minority of the minority opinion, which is that the mother-in-law gave birth to a boy, and therefore she wouldn't have to do Yibum in that case. We saw machlokes between Zeiri and Rab Chanina about, was it Zeiri and Rab Chanina? About, can you just wait, can Sarah, whose husband and co-wife went away, can she just kind of wait enough time that the co-wife could have theoretically had a baby and then just do chalitza? Zeiri says yes. Reb Chanina is concerned that if she does chalitza, then the yentis could get concerned and that would be a problem. And then we saw another mission at the end about just kind of different cases where we have to be, where we have to figure out if the wives can do yibum or chalitza or whatever. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Yutes of Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.